welcome back. All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and I pray everybody is doing well. Let me go ahead and run this thing a little bit, and I'll be right back. All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and you don't know already. I pray everybody is doing well. We didn't forget, Sir Marcus. I got carried away for a second there, but now I am back. You don't know? So how is everybody doing today? I pray everybody, as always, is doing well. I said, let me chip in for a second. Show me face. I'm going to this Marcus Garvey conversation, right? Because the last time we checked in, the last time we saw Sir Marcus, we were actually learning a little bit about Mary bugging early, Amy number 1, right? We were going into Amy number 1, and we were looking at her background and that she was an Ashanti, her grandmother was anyway, and we went out into that. So definitely check out that episode. But today now, it's when Amy met Garvey, right? So we're going to come from a few books because this meeting is interesting, right? The meeting is interesting. So right now we're coming from Negro with a Hat, which is just a funny title to me, but we're going to continue anyway. We are coming from page 56. And as usual, we're going to... All right, Stevens, can only stay. It's nighttime. No worries. We're gonna try to move through the data. I know it's late across the pond, you know? On the 20th of July, 1914, just 2 weeks after his return to Jamaica, and we went over that, he had convened the first ever meeting of the UNIA and elected officers who in turn appointed him the president and traveling commissioner. I'm going to go over that in another video because, hey, Kevin, what's going on? As And shout out to you, Stevens, for ordering the book. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. As Marcus come back to Jamaica, him not start stir up things. Well, actually, let me just give a little backstory because I didn't go over that. So he wrote, remember that whole thing he wrote for the tourists, and he kind of didn't want to write it, but he wrote it because he needed some money. So anyway, apparently the gleaner, the gleaner prints it, right? So by the time he comes back to Jamaica, he has some people who's really not feeling what he wrote in the article, and so they're rebutting the gleaner, and saying, why did you let him put that in there? Blah blah blah. Marcus got take up himself. I have to read that another time, but Marcus got take up himself. Abini, welcome to the conversation, to answer them. Right, so he kind of getting this little back and forth between some of the readers and him, and he's feisty. I said, Marcus, how you so feisty? Him feisty though. But for this purposes, he already went in the little. He had the tiff. He went in the back and forth, and now this is they're saying that it was the 20th of July that he started. Right, just 2 weeks after his return to Jamaica, he had convened the first ever meeting of the UNIA. It says the organization's modest funds meant that the operational headquarters of the UNIA was confined to 12 Orange Street, Kingston, a central location, which to those unfamiliar with the topography of the capital might suggest a confident beginning of some success. On closer inspection, however, it turned out, I don't know why this is funny, it turned out to be Garvey's cramped hotel room. He is all about start where I am. I'm not mad at you, Garvey. Complete with a small bed jammed in the corner. If he was on the third class of the boat and came up with this grand idea, a hotel room is a level up. From the start, the UNIA made clear that it was not a political organization, but a charitable club built around the nucleus of a literacy, music appreciation, debating society to which all were welcome. Such debating societies had mushroomed in the capital, partly in compensation for the island's limited formal educational system. And remember, we had just saw the Gleaner article of the date. I think it was the 7th or the 8th. Don't quote me. I have to go back and look. That Amy Garvey joins another debating society. So Marcus comes after that time, and he's also encouraging this type of discourse, right? It says the educational... Wait, hold on. The educationally aspiring had a plethora of groups to choose from: Spalding's Literacy and Society, the Queen Street Baptist Literacy and Debating Society, and a host of other genteel associations competed for members. James Hill's Literacy and Improvement Society, which is extensive library, was perhaps the most alluring. It was over tea and Johnny cakes. Who remembers Johnny cakes? Yo, we used to love Johnny cake when we were a little bit. At the Queen's, it's like, for those Johnny cakes, it's like a fried dumpling, right? At the Queen Street Baptist Literacy and Debating Society at the start of August 1914, that Garvey met a formidable 17-year-old, 10 years his junior. And we looked at her age from the last. She was 19 according to the birth certificate, right? But nonetheless, we're gonna continue. It says here, so he meets Amy, right, who had recently graduated from Westwood School for Girls. Even at so young an age, Amy Ashwood's elegance and regal bearing was remarked upon. She had a haunting and mischievous face. Wow, what a way to describe you. Good evening, everybody. You had a haunting and mischievous face. Hold them look. Why them face did haunting and mischievous? I'm sorry. Decades later, in an unpublished manuscript portrait of a liberator, Amy wrote glowingly of an unexpected encounter with a member of the audience at the end of the debate. Garvey had followed her out into the wine dark night. Like, where you going, Garvey? Like, check me in the day, fam. To the tram shelter where she stood waiting for the streetcar to take her home. They struck up an immediate friendship, and the next day at 8 in the morning, Garvey, was knocking on the door of my home. So this man, in forward, how Yo, you meet him the night before, 8 o'clock before daylight. The man there, your yard and knock on your door. Who that? Garvey that. I mean, the man where you're meeting at the dark last night. Anyway, let me continue. The honor, and then we're gonna read from the we're gonna read from another book. The honorable leader of the UNIA invited Amy to a committee meeting at Orange Street, but as he strode forward into the office, she held back at the door. The office, which I room, alarmed at the signs of domesticity. Y'all help me. Yo, son, this stuff is funny. Under cross examination, Garvey admitted that given the convenience of his central location, he sometimes rested there. When he says sometime, he mean every night. Sometimes rested there. Good evening, everybody who's just joined us. It was evidently an unsatisfactory answer. Amy Ashwood promptly informed him that it was not appropriate for a young, unaccompanied lady to be calling at the home of a gentleman, and she would be able to return. She would not be able to return there to attend any meeting. And then it says that mother was very dubious about the whole affair. Alternative premises needed to be found. So imagine, yeah, man, me, you the leader of the new group, I want you come and one at the meeting there. And when my girl pull up another the hotel room, that tickles me. If Garvey, like Ashwood's mother, had doubts about including a member of such a tender age, when Amy's subsequent offer a week later of a large rented house in New Kingston, divided in two so that one half would serve as UNIA offices, settled the matter. The organization's fortunes would improve substantially with the admission of Amy Ashwood. So she was like, no, sir, this not gonna work. And then she proceeds to help, Amy was extraordinarily mature for her age. Her precocious brilliance dazzled all those who came within her sphere. Her personality seemed to have been an appealing concoction of high intellectual seriousness and convivial mischief. What? A formula that drew people to her and by extension to the nascent movement. So she was an addition. You understand what I'm saying? The rental of the new HQ at 30 Orange Street had been secured on her father, Michael Ashwood, her father's credit. He thought highly enough of Amy to have made her treasurer of the family fortunes in his absence, because remember, the father was an entrepreneur. A baker by trade, Michael Ashwood had stayed on in the Panama City, because remember, they were there and her mother brought them back to Jamaica to go to school. Where are we? Had migrated there with the family at the height of the canal's construction and set up a restaurant and food catering service. The nostalgia of his fellow Caribbean immigrants, or at least their palates, was sated by Michael's cuisine of roti, ackee, and saltfish and jerk chicken. Wow, Michael over there make them the most of food. Where am I? Business had boomed so much that the decision was made after a few years for his wife and daughter to return to Jamaica, where Amy was enrolled as a boarder at the pioneering Westwood High School. And remember last time we read that they weren't admitting people of a certain complexion into schools, and this Westwood High School was breaking that color barrier, right? A school for the training of native girls along with others regardless of class or color, and that's the creed of the Westwood High School. So it goes on to say, she, meaning Amy, was as passionate as Garvey, sharing his belief in the need for the salvation of the race. The miracle of her education bore testimony to the pathology of Jamaica and the desire for its redemption. Westwood had been founded in 1880 by a Baptist minister who abhorred the prejudices exhibited by the parents of light-skinned students. So before we were talking about how colorism played a role, and we see that historically it played a role in opportunities, education, advancement, and the like. Fretting over their possible contamination by too close a proximity to blacks, when admission policies proved lax enough to let in darker-skinned girls, these anxious parents simply withdrew their brown children from the schools. Can you imagine? Yeah, it was a colorist caste system. Yeah, that's Kevin is saying. Can you imagine? So this Baptist preacher, minister, is like, yo, he's going to do something about the problem. Westwood High School closed its doors to no child, no matter her color. Buoyed by the financial support of a committee of philanthropic English ladies, the school charged moderate fees, and aimed to compete with more prestigious institutions offering all the advantages of a fair English education. Residents in England only accepted. In practice, this was rudimentary, and yet the ebony skinned Amy Ashwood excelled, despite the constraints of prospectus French, drawing, painting, and music aside, that prided itself on guaranteeing a thorough instruction in all matters pertaining to household management. So this is interesting, and that was coming from a Negro with a hat, that Amy would have finished her education. Remember, Marcus had to drop out because things with him father and all kind of things. And then he didn't finish his college. So Amy would have finished at least high school. So she's definitely bringing value to the conversation. Now, let me read. I'm going to save Amy's book for last. Let me quickly read the encounter that is in this big thick book right there. So coming from volume 1 of the UNIA papers by Robert Hill, the editor, right? On page 54, it says this about their encounter. Well, on there. Yeah, I don't know what. In an unpublished biography of Amy Ashwood Garvey by Lionel M. Yard, entitled The First Amy Tells All, the following disclosure is made. So they started the writing but never got to finish, right? And according to what I read, they found some of these in her papers, and it's here and there and everywhere. But it says, after the establishment of the paper organization, Garvey invited Amy to attend a committee meeting. As Amy described the situation, Garvey, invited me to attend a committee meeting at his office in Orange Street, Kingston. The address turned out to be a room in a hotel where Garvey lived. I asked him if he lived there, although it was quite obvious, for there were signs in the little room of his residence, for I saw a cot in the corner of the room. He replied that the address was very central. That guy, yeah, man. He replied that the address was very central and he sometimes rested there. Bro, you're broke and you never had no money. And yes, I just saw it there. Sometime, every night. He replied that the address, okay, I informed him that I would not be able to return there to attend any meeting and that my mother was very dubious about the whole affair. According to the author, Garvey found an alternative meeting place on Charles Street in Amy Ashwood Garvey's unpublished biography, Sketch of Garvey, Portrait of a Liberator. So there are two unpublished biographies. There's First Amy Tells All and then Portrait of a Liberator. Okay. Since my father had made me the family treasurer in his absence, I decided to rent a room at 36 Charles Street, Kingston. Although my mother had consented to the move, half of the house was immediately put at the disposal of the UNIA for the use of offices and a meeting place. It was in this new headquarters that Marcus and I and a few enthusiasts began to elaborate the aims and principles of our association in a thorough and systematic manner. We were laying the first foundations of what was to grow into a worldwide mass Negro movement. And then he goes on to say that there's a discrepancy on where exactly on the street it was, but indeed, that was how he got proper hosting for his meetings. How curious is that? That's curious. Hold on there. Now try to see which part I read that he appears and start telling all I'm business. I'm going to make sure that I did not miss that. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, no. All right, let's go to the next book now. Sometimes when me a cross reference, me have to remember which part everything did there. Because in another book, he shows up. It tells about how he shows up and start telling her all his little business. Hold on 1 second. All right, let's start. Let me change this here. For those who just joined us, welcome to the conversation. So, where did he meet her? He met her at after a debate. Why it feels like this is not. And the name of this chapter is Napoleon meets his Josephine. Napoleon meets his Josephine. All right. All right, everybody. Let us start. It was a Tuesday evening in the late July 1914, and Amy Ashwood, already precociously talented beyond her 17 or 19 years, was a principal speaker in the weekly literary debate at the East Queen Street Baptist Church Hall in Kingston. And we already went over that. Okay? So she's already doing her thing, right? And that's important. Why is that important? Because in some cases, especially when men induct women into the historically, right, into knowledge, it could be whatever. It could be Rastafari, it could be Christianity, it could be wherever. When the man has the knowledge and he brings in the woman, a lot of times the woman's knowledge is capped at whatever the man decides to share with her. So he invites her in, he brings her in. And so to a certain degree, she kind of melds with this teacher then. And she doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily possibly sometimes there, I said a lot of not necessarily possibly, therefore all of the right reasons. A lot of times I've seen it personally that the woman is there for the man in this new organization or system of learning and growth, right? And so when the man fails, the woman falls away. I find it interesting, and her life indicates that beyond her exposure to Marcus, she continues because she already was on the course when she met him, if that makes sense, right? So it says here, and again, when the woman, and I'm not saying it's a totally bad thing, but when the woman's understanding and intellectual and emotional spiritual growth is tied up in such a way that it goes south, then it ends at that point, which is sad because she goes off course because the man hurt her. Then all of this is a lie, and that's not automatically true, but unfortunately that's what happens. Let me know if I'm bugging, y'all. Let me know if I'm bugging. It says the promise of her future. Okay, so that's what she did there. Oratorical acclaim was already plain for all to see. She was vigorously defending the proposition that mortality does not increase with the march of civilization. So remember, I surmised that possibly that first debate that we saw was where he saw her, but the author is submitting that he saw her on another debate, and that debate was morality does not increase with the march of civilization. We could debate that today because we marched 100 years later, and morality does not necessarily increase. And it did not increase. Actually, it devolved in some spaces, right? It says here, so absorbed was she in the thrust and parade of argument and counter argument as the evening progressed that she saw but did not especially notice the short, stout stranger who eloquently supported her arguments from the floor. So the debate over, Amy proceeded to a tramcar stop to await transportation. But waiting at the stop, she recollected many years later, was a stocky figure with slightly drooping shoulders. Marcus, oh, you never did a sit up straight. A stocky figure with slightly drooping shoulders, fam? He seemed vaguely familiar. Yes, the man where did I eye you in the audience? Sorry. And then I realized that he was the gentleman who argued so forcefully for my point of view. At closer quarters, the stranger arrested my attention. Excitement over the debate had vanished, and I saw clearly that an intense light shone from the eyes of my unknown supporter. And this is quotation. So they're saying that this is what Amy was saying, that this stocky figure with drooping shoulders, who was vaguely familiar, arrested her attention. And that he clearly had intensity behind his eyes. Anywho, vague recognition abruptly gave way to astonishment, for as Amy explained, then followed the great surprise of my life. The bold stranger came forward impulsively and without warning. Okay, sir, at night, can you back up? It says, addressing me in the most amazing fashion. At last, he said in his rich, deep voice, I have found my... Yo, hold on there. Let me get myself together. Because Garvey is giving me jokes right now. At last, he said in his rich, deep voice, I have found my star of destiny. I have found my Josephine. You hear them lyrics then now? Not hello, stranger lady, how you do? I have found my star of destiny. Him dash where the Spanish heiress, the Irish heiress now, she not engage again. Despite being taken aback at this sudden protestation of affection, Amy could not help being inwardly thrilled by such an outburst of gallantry. You hear them word there? She was impressed. Other admirers, she confessed, had paid me compliments, but none of them had equaled him in his sheer audacity, dash, and flattery of approach. Him wasn't playing shy guy. Him go and say, I finally me meet you. Thus ended Amy Ashwood's account of her first encounter with Marcus Messiah Garvey, a man over 9 years her senior, a man destined to lead within a few short years the largest Pan-African race uplift movement of all time. A man whose presence, for good or for ill, she would be unable or unwilling to eradicate from her being for the rest of her life. Because we're going to learn later, she protests that them never really divorce. It says, Marcus' recollection is only fair to state was more prosaic. He was introduced to her at a debating club. He wrote in a 1920 affidavit, and the month was August, not July, as Amy wrote here, or June. Well, it couldn't have been June because he wasn't there. Or she swore in a 1920 affidavit of her own. It could not have been June because Marcus arrived home in July. So we know it couldn't have been June, right? Garvey was born 1887, August the 17th in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica, and like Amy, showed great precocity as a public speaker. While still a teenager, he rose exceptionally quick within the ranks of Jamaican printing trade. So they're going back. We read that where he's from. He went through Costa Rica. I'm going to jump down and fast forward here. So he traveled around and let me jump down here. So both in Jamaica and in his foreign travels, Garvey had been appalled at the wretched conditions facing peoples of African descent universally. And by the time he met A.B. Garvey, he had become convinced that his life work lay in rescuing the African race from the unfortunate predicament. And Amy, with her oratorical skills, her flair for politics and history, and her obvious disposition towards public involvement, seemed a likely partner for his life's work. I'm trying to figure out what happened to the Spanish heiress. Napoleon was one of Garvey's favorite historical characters, and like Napoleon, he had now met his Josephine. He had now met his Josephine, right? That quickly. But 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks, he was arguing in the Gleaner about, he was lamenting really, not really arguing about, I think I should read it, about if a black man marries a white woman. I'm like, Marcus, what are you talking about? And then now he met his Josephine and that's where the Spanish lady. I don't know. It says, According to Amy's version of their events, he lost no time in pouring out to a still somewhat startled Amy his aspirations for the African race. She commented later, at the moment I discerned that a powerful inner flame was consuming the man, and that a force of volcanic nature was gathering in the depths of her being. You know, hear them kind of poetry there. You know, hear them poetry there. Hear me. Amy Ashwood often claimed to be the first member and co-founder of Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association, organized within a few days of Garvey's return to Jamaica. Garvey has been given both Emancipation Day and July 20th as founding days for the UNIA. If Garvey's date of 1914 August for the initial meeting is correct, then Amy's claims are probably fictional. If even she was in fact the first member, this cannot necessarily be construed as confounding the organization that Garvey had already conceived and planned. So they're going between, he said that he came up with this on the boat on his way over, and that she may have been one of the first, but not the first. And there's a contestation about which one is accurate. I'm trying to hold on, everybody. Let me see here. I don't want to fast forward because I know I read when he comes to her house, he goes into this whole situation. And I thought I had it marked. What do you think of that so far? If somebody invited you, if a man invited you, he approached you in the night and then invited you to his room, his meeting, and when you get there, I look while I'm talking. When you get there at the man room, where you that do? And fellas, would you invite a woman to a meeting to save the race in your hotel room? Or is it me? Am I the only one that finds this curious? Hold on to everybody, because I'm going to keep going. Because I have to double check where did I read that? I know I read that. Too much book. Let's continue. Which one with them now? So they're talking more about the setting up of the UNIA. She becomes the T.A. McCormick guy. Remember the guy he wrote to say he was globetrotting and he was going to be engaged? He became the Secretary General. It says here, Marcus Garvey headed the organization as its president and traveling commissioner. Thomas Sminkle was vice president, and T.A. McCormick, which is the guy he wrote, was secretary general. Treasurer was J.W. Milburn. Eva Aldred was president of the ladies division. According to Amy Ashwood version, Marcus stood before me and said in a very earnest voice, Amy Ashwood, I appoint you secretary of the Universal Improvement Association. And I replied with an equal earnestness, and Marcus Garvey, I appoint you president. Them have appointment ceremony. However, the UNIA letterhead early in 1915 listed her as one of the two associate secretaries, the other being Adrian A. Daly. Newspaper reports of 1914, 15, and 16 all listed her as general secretary or simply secretary of the ladies' division. Amy referred to herself in 1915 November as the general lady secretary of the organization, and in 1920 affidavit, cause them getting a back and forth by 1920, Amy repeated her claim to being secretary of the early UNIA. But we're going to keep going into them. We're going to keep going into them relationship. Hold on there. I don't really appreciate the thing just jump and go and run where left me, Hold on. Because her family did not like this relationship, and she's sent off to Panama. All right. I think it's over here. Okay, I'll read this part right here. This is on page 26. Okay, the relationship between Amy and Marcus deepened quickly and merged with their joint endeavors with the association. Amy, in her colorful words, realized that every woman's instinct tell her when a man has fallen in love with her. Hey, I've said it. I've said my own. No. And Marcus, in love, she said, behaved much the same as in his other affairs. He loved in the grand manner, the bowing of all wills to his own. Where Marcus get that from? We know Marcus' father was interested in. It says they were engaged clandestinely. Amy claimed later, since she feared maternal disapproval as such a move. Marcus later put the date of engagement to 1915. So they're meeting in 1914 summer, and they're saying that by 1915, them engaged, Josephine and Napoleon. Amy's engagement to Marcus signified a victory. If wait, so he broke off the engagement with the heiress. Anyway, Amy's engagement to Marcus signified a victory, if only temporarily, over three distinct elements, all potential disruptive of their relationship. In the first place, in his travels in Europe, had entered into an affair with a European woman. That's what we thought. The propriety of such a liaison had troubled him from the beginning. So where you gonna do it for Marcus? He confided as much in his letter from London to his godfather Alfred Burroughs on March 2nd, 1914. He was engaged to a Spanish heiress. Sorry, it was Burroughs and not McCormick that he told that to. I stand corrected. He was engaged to Spanish-Irish heiress he met on the continent, he wrote. He acknowledged that this was somewhat destructive of my principle and that he was reluctant to have the news hit Jamaica. Marcus's flirtation across the color line seems to have been an aberration of short duration, like he came to his senses, right? However, for he forcefully condemned such relationships both shortly before and shortly after this true confession to Burroughs. But I don't know him did I do it. That was from the little playmate. Shalom says, welcome to the conversation. That was from the little playmate. So it wasn't short-lived. It was kind of a little bit long-lived, but him snap out of it. It says here, less than 2 months earlier, Marcus had boasted in another letter, this was from Glasgow, of his success at resisting the blandishments of the European women he met on his travel. No. Back off, man. You can't have it. If I wanted white heiress, I would have startled Jamaica on my return, he wrote time around. And we read that, right? So, and in July 1914, a few days after returning to Jamaica, he commented, this is what I was referring to, and I'm glad they're referring to it, so I don't have to go back to the big book feet. He commented on British press sensationalism of interracial relationships involving black men. If a black man married a white woman, he explained, a thing he has no right to do, he results was usually lurid headlines. It's interesting that he says that just 2 weeks after coming back, when before he thought he had a right to do it. If there was an heiress, we don't know. We just have to go on what was said. Once back in the land of Jamaica, women, it was Amy's beauty that startled Marcus. The termination of his European diversion was easily finalized. I'm done with her. I broke up with she. He wrote his heiress with Amy's full knowledge as follows. We have read this before, but let's read it again in the context of before he reached the heiress, is he engaged to two women? Because he's engaged to her and then he writes the heiress. So he says this, marriage between us is now impossible. You will be far happier with a member of your own race. So will I be with my own. So will I be with one of mine. I have seen a girl. So yes, in my dumb part after I meet Amy Ashwood. Was she a placeholder? What's going on, Marcus? He says, I have seen a girl, blood of my blood and of my own race. Forgive me, but if I marry you now, that you know the truth, I shall revert to my own kind every time the opportunity presents itself, aka in with Giobon. And that let me know what you guys got from that. Basically, he's saying every time the opportunity presents itself, me go Giobon. Marcus, not me. So he might tell her, I said, boy, look, you know, this not gonna work. The second potential obstacle to Amy's relationship with Garvey could not have been seen as such in 1914 by any of the three parties involved. Even before he met Amy Ashwood, Garvey had already made the acquaintance of her best friend, Amy Jacques. So, according to this, he already knew Amy number two. Let's see how they conclude that. Indeed, according to one version of the story, because you know it's a story of all kind of sides. According to one version of the story, it was actually Amy Jacques who first introduced Marcus to Amy Ashwood. That would have to place her at the debates. Amy Jacques had much in common with her friend and namesake. She was attractive, a good public speaker, well-educated, a member of Jamaica's middle class. She had access to superior secondary education and possessed a junior Cambridge certificate, an indication of some academic excellence in Caribbean of that period. By her own admission, Amy Jacques at that time shared some of the color and class prejudices of many members of Jamaica mixed race and black middle class. She would not have been disposed to participate in a black uplift movement in Jamaica. Yet she found Marcus an exciting person to talk to, even though there was apparently no immediate physical attraction. For the time being, however, she seemed an unlikely threat to Amy Ashwood's romance. This is curious. This may be where the beef comes in, which they do have beef. I do have her book, but I didn't see that part yet. So, you know, if I do, I will come back to that. The third obstacle to Amy Ashwood's romance, if Amy can be believed, dang, why y'all coming for her like that, was her mother, who was supposedly more affected by Jamaica's middle-class prejudices than her less orthodox daughter. In her biographical manuscript of Marcus, Amy Ashwood made much of her mother's hostility to the relationship. Me know why you married that boy there. Me not like him. Welcome, Queenie, to the conversation. You could hear it. Me know why you know him too short, him too dark, him too this. Real conversations. It goes on to say, young Amy even had to escape from the house on occasion, she said, in order to participate in UNIA meetings. Yet her mother's hostility must have been short-lived, if it ever existed, for the local press regularly reported Amy Ashwood's presence in the UNIA meetings. And by August 1915, Mrs. Ashwood herself and, of course, her daughter were among the ladies helping run the UNIA dinner for the poor. Amy's brother Michael Ashwood also performed more than once at UNIA concerts. Monique says, no immediate attraction. That meeting tells me everything I need. The second Amy, didn't like him. So why all of a sudden him become so likable, right? So now this first Amy says it was love and how Marcus did love her off, okay? And Marcus claims that I've met my Josephine. And according to the one report, the second Amy didn't like him. Miss Ashwood's alleged hostility to the UNIA becomes even more improbable in light of the use of her home as UNIA headquarters. But why would she lie? I don't know. In the words of her 1920 affidavit, you know we're going to have to go into that, secured the use of her mother's domicile as the office of said association. Marcus's affidavit saw it differently. He was induced by Amy to relocate his business office. Bro, you was in the hotel. Cut it out. You did not have a business office. He was working from home before working from home was a thing. Stop, Marcus. Talking about you was induced by Amy to relocate his business office and the UNIA office to her home in order to help alleviate her financial difficulties. Amy, Marcus said, was embarrassed and unable. Dang, Marcus, throw her under the bus on skates. He said Amy was embarrassed and unable to pay the rent, and so he frequently paid it. At least 2/3 of the gross rental of the premises fell upon me monthly. So this is when they're in marriage cuscus. Shout out to Fever. Thank you so much. Drop the like and share on this video. This affidavit they keep referring is when cuscus come out. So, but in the beginning there wasn't any cuscus. So I think it colors the story, learning about the affidavits early, because of course people gonna say what they say in at that time, right? Let me see. Yes or no. Let me jump down. Do 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 do. I'm trying to figure out. Let's continue to read. In August of 1950, Marcus delivered a major speech in which he deplored the wretched conditions facing Afro-Jamaicans. An outcry ensued in the local press. Some persons seized the opportunity to call for an accounting of monies collected by the UNIA, and I did come across some money collection. We could look at that because at first they were trying to do what Booker T was doing with Tuskegee, which is empowering the youth, having certain classes and things of that nature. So they were collecting money. So according to this, they called for the money, a review of the accounting. For they viewed with suspicion someone who seemed to work full-time as a race uplift. Amy Ashwood, together with the association's treasurer and general secretary, were the ones whose names were appended to a published UNIA cash statement, which duly appeared for the year ending in August 1915. Marcus left for New York in March of 1916. Amy says she preceded him to Panama, correctly it seems, although she contradictorily claimed to have left Jamaica that summer. The Gleaner gave her date of departure as January 1916 and recorded her elaborate send-off. A large number of Negro Improvement Society members and friends turned up at Amy's residence, 30 Charles Street, Kingston, to bid farewell to Amy, Secretary of Ladies Branch. The Reverend Brown, this is Elthred Brown, presided, and Marcus read an address to Amy. Several others spoke in eulogistic terms, and she, in a few suitable words, replied. Yet Amy's name appears with several others as a signatory to a February 16th letter of introduction for Marcus. So now the person seems to be like, yo, some of these dates are not adding up, right? It says the letter informed whom it may concern that Marcus would soon be traveling to the United States, the West Indies, South and Central America, and Canada in the interest of an industrial farming institute along the lines of the late Booker T. Washington. And it's a shame that he went off of that, because that would have given practical skills. And then he went, you wanted the big hurrah, but you kind of deviated. And then these particular skills in the land that you wanted them to be developed, it didn't develop in that capacity. Anyway, not from his particular efforts, because he left and then, kind of like stayed, According to Amy's often unreliable testimony, her move, the way they coming for Amy number one. How much time am I going to call her liar in one thing? Her move to Panama was precipitated by events involving Marcus. She broke off their engagement, she wrote later, since it threatened to get in the way of their organizational work. Because if he's strong-headed and she's strong-headed, and she says that he approached the relationship much in the same way he approached life, and we have to look at who is his example, his dad, right? He's gravitating towards her because of her strength, but also maybe repelled or find it troubling when he's not able to subdue her, because ultimately he is the man in the relationship, right? So they're having a little bit of a issue. So according to Amy, then broke it off. She wrote later, since it threatened to get in the way of their organizational work. Marcus then retaliated by declaring them man and wife anywhere. I can't take it. I can't take it. Did they say, according to this, that she breaks it off and Marcus is like, I don't care, we're there? For those who just joined us, welcome to the conversation. way I said to me, Marcus, oh, you know, no behavior. Anyway, we're shot with the now. Page 29. It says, Marcus then retaliated by declaring them man and wife anyway in the sight of God. Her mother became alarmed at all this and summoned Mr. Ashwood home from Panama. Remember, when she there, I said, dear Michael, do me, I beg you, come home. Amy go take up with this boy named Marcus and appear trouble find them there. Help, come home, quick. It says, a sort of inquisition took place on the father's arrival, wherein Marcus informed the skeptical parents of his intention to marry their daughter. We can't want to lock her down now, you know, and can't make her, because if she's adding this kind of flair to his organization, does he want her to go off? So it says here, Mr. Ashwood's response was to advise his daughter to be ready to leave for Panama with him in 24 hours. So if I broke up, you broke up. You done there, sir. You left, you got Panama. You're not staying here. It says here, somehow, according to Amy's narrative, her parents were unwilling or unable to restrain Marcus from being on hand to see her off. This farewell was in a characteristically grand style. He read her the Psalm of Life. Yo, McCarry. The dramatics, Dread. He read her the Psalm of Life and presented her with the following pledge. I, Marcus Garvey, promise to be faithful and true to you, Amy Ashwood, him say, until he dead. Well, him put until death do us part. So him a married her anyway now, you know, because him a do pledge in front of witness, you know. So him a married her anyway spiritually. He says, so help him God. He supposedly made her sign a similar pledge. There may be some truth embedded somewhere in this account, and it is not necessarily mutually exclusive with the Gleaner's contemporaneous documentation. But the latter has to be preferred to Amy's fanciful and erratic later recollections. Oh, just give it a whole of Amy recollection because she sounds funny. A Garvey letter of May 1916 confirms that Amy and her father were in Panama by then, and that Amy's mother, unknown to him, had left Jamaica for Panama on the same day that Garvey left for the United States. Whatever the precise date of her departure from Jamaica, it is represented for Amy and the end of one phase of her life and the beginning of another. She returned to her native land at various points throughout her life, but never permanently until 1968. And that was when she returned home, weary from a lifetime of global wanderings to die. So after this point, she's all over. She's in New York, she's in Europe, she's all over, and she doesn't go back home until 1968. How interesting is that? I'm going to read these footnotes real quick to make sure that the story I read wasn't in these footnotes. How is everybody doing? Are you entertained at Marcus Garvey's declaration? Marrying her anyway, I, Marcus, pledge. Hold on there. Let me check the first one. Hold on there. But no, let me read it now. I read that he came to her house early in the morning and he's telling her all about his life. Let me pull the book. Let me see if it's in this one right here. How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the conversation. What Marcus was persistent. He was too hype. Monique and Marcus did too hype. Good night, everybody. Vinette, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the conversation. So what did you miss? We read about how they met, how he pushed up on her at the tram stop, waiting for her bus to go home, her trolley. And he saw her debating and he was love-strucken. He was love-struck. And him professing love and him invite her to come a meeting, but the meeting was in a hotel room. And according to him, or according to she was like, this is not acceptable. Let me look in the back of this book real quick. This is not acceptable. And she invited him to remove his meeting place to her location, and they allocated half of the home to the UNIA activities. And so she throws herself headlong into the activities. According to she, Marcus love her off. And when our father find out, he came from Panama and he wanted to take her back to Panama. And Marcus declares his love upon her leaving, that him and she, like color purple, shall never part. Maki Dada. You remember that color purple, eh? Me and thee shall never part. You know, I like when I can't find something. Welcome to those who just joined us. It agitates me just a little bit. So bear with me, everybody. I'm going to open the mic real quick. Feel free to come up and share your thoughts, if you have any, while I continue to peruse this thing really quickly. So, you know, people are people. Well, that's what we're going to find out. One says that Marcus cheated. The other says that Amy cheated. But what we do know from what we're reading is that they both had very strong personalities. They both had very strong personalities, right? I think it may be in this book here. Hold on one second. So when he comes back, he's definitely, he is feisty. Let me just say, you get to see his personality in the way he's responding to people very, very early on. And this stuff is in the Gleaner. Like, he's literally responding to them in the Gleaner. I already read that. Yep. So, did I put the link? Yeah, I put the link in the box. If I can't find it, it's basically talking about how he came to her house and how he shared about his life, his family, his experience. Like, I wouldn't call it trauma dumping, but to put that all on somebody at one time, it really pulls them in quickly. If you ever just meet somebody today and then tomorrow, like in 2 seconds, they put all of this on you, it may be that you then feel inclined towards them because they divulge so much information so quickly. So according to the portion that I read, he just let it all out when he came to her house, telling all about his family, this, that, and Tara Watts it not. Who has heard that saying in a long time? This, that, and Tara Watts it not. So I can't find it right now, and I don't know why it's playing hide and seek, but you don't know already. If I do find it, I will let you guys know. So yeah, that's basically how they met. There's a little contestation as to whether or not Amy Jackies was the one who introduced them. But according to the accounts, he would have met her debating, right? He would have met her debating because that is what she was doing. Y'all know I'm about to try to look for this after I get off of here. So with that said, let me know if you have anything to add or share. If not, I'm going to go ahead and wind down. And when we continue, we're going to see what happens from there. And a lot of times in the book of, in reading Afeni Shakur's book, what I found parallel to what we just read is that in Afeni Shakur's book, Diary of a Revolutionary, I was trying to remember the name of the book, co-written by Jasmine Guy. That book is a trip. That what do you call it? That review is also on the channel. When she meets Matulu Shakur, she's attracted to his status in the organization, right? There's something about a knowledgeable man, somebody who's in a position of power. So she's attracted to that energy. And although in that story, Matulu already is married. He is also attracted to the strength that Afeni is exhibiting. Jakes, thank you. Esman is saying it's pronounced Jakes. What me say? Our name is Jackie's. Jakes, that's interesting. Thank you so much for that. Um, what was I saying now? What did I say? Oh, so in that story, he's attracted to her in the same way that she's attracted to him, because in that story they're also in a movement, which is the Black Panther movement, and she also has this very forward thinking, people oriented thought process. So even though he is already married in the Black Panther narrative, she kind of moving pantapa Matulu Shakur wife and the picnic them, and basically says, you know what, she is more interested in the movement and not the rearing of children, so she feels as though she didn't step on her toes. That's another story, but it's just interesting to see how women and men who are both moving towards a certain goal collectively, they may join forces to make this power couple, but the thing that brought them together is also the thing that separates them if they get off balance, because those energies are so similar. Kevin says, and if even if Garvey did cheat, there's still no proof that he was a womanizer. How do we get there? What, me miss something? Oh, speculation. You know, the man says, do I need to read it again? Did we not hear that Garvey says that him and she are never a go part? We're going to get to the one part. He said that, let me read it again, just for my own entertainment purposes. Him say, them are got there together. So me no know how, I think, well, I ain't even going to say what I think yet. We're going to get to that part. We're going to get to that part. So with that said, thank you guys for sharing your thoughts. And this is history, right? Nubian, welcome. I know it's late in London. I know it's late, y'all. I know it's late. Shout out to everybody who's just joined us. What was I gonna say? Yeah, that's what we have for today. We'll come back again. Let me know if you got any of these books and if you were able to glean more from this conversation and relationship. So they're engaged. She breaks it off. She goes to Panama, and now we're gonna have to catch up on when she reunites with him in New York, and to discover and explore what happens there. Nipsey, thank you for just tuning in. I'm winding down at this point. I put the link in the box. Again, if you have anything to share, something that I may have missed, go ahead and drop it in the comment section below. You know, I'm open to continuing to learn and grow. You don't know. And to everyone who has bought the books, I have more books to put up here. If you're not tired for the little one commercial, stay with me, because enough things are going. But I'm gonna make a next commercial, because I have and it's been out for a while. The cooking classes that I share that I do for children, there are Let's Eat cooking book set for younger children to learn about healthy foods, engage activity books. So when that commercial come, no worry, we're gonna have a new commercial. But as for right now, we have to go and run the commercial where we have. So I'm gonna run that. I'm gonna run the pumpkin seed, which is one of my favorite things to make these days. When I stopped eating eggs, I was looking for a replacement for like 10 years. And everything didn't do what I wanted to do, but the protein content in the pumpkin seed can be manipulated in a way that gives you that satisfaction. You understand me I say? So definitely check out the Hey Pumpkin cookbook. I will put some more free recipes up on the community board if you want to see some of the other things. Something that's simple you can make is pumpkin seed milk. Right? Pumpkin seed milk has a thicker consistency. It's something that you can add dates into, you can add certain other things to, and you can put it in your smoothie. And that'll give you certain potassium, magnesium. That will give you the boost sometimes that you're looking for in the vitamin if you just incorporate it. Another thing I have to say about pumpkin seeds is, like, disclaimer, it's a dewormer. So you have to eat it in moderation. There's a certain amount of pumpkin seeds you can't eat for the day. Otherwise, else, you know what happen. A bathroom, me say. So there's only a certain amount that you can eat for the day, and that's also something to keep in mind. But definitely as a cleanser, dewormer, pumpkin seeds. So I'm going to play this commercial and then come back for any thoughts before I wrap up. Listener, all of this jokes and reading got me feeling a little hungry. Do you guys come with your snacks ready, or do you think it's time for an ital food break? The Russ and him Empress say, yeah, ital food break. So listener, this is Imuna, and not only do I read and write novels, I also do a little something something. Well, a kind of big something in the kitchen, right? So I wrote this amazing Hey Pumpkin cookbook. Inside, pumpkin seed milk, carrot punch smoothie, listener, even jerk tofu strips. But the tofu is made from pumpkin seeds. So join me on a culinary adventure with the pumpkin seed as we explore the benefits of this green superfood. You already know potassium, zinc, it is loaded and highly beneficial. Again, a high source of iron, zinc, magnesium, vitamin E, and it helps boost the immune system. This book, as well as Island Twist, is available on Amazon today. So go on over and let's get back to the story. All right, story have to continue. That get late. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for making literacy, history, fun, engaging, why we can look back and know that our foreparents were people. That I mean, if we don't take away nothing from why Muna do this, because sometimes we look and act as though are taught in the way we're taught that these are not people, like they're more highly elevated than us because it's people with emotions, right actions, wrong actions, mistakes, all of those things are wrapped up in the history, and when we look at that, then it's not that far beyond us, right? We can identify more and learn and incorporate the lessons that they left on record for us. And so that's the benefit and of just seeing Marcus as a person who was love struck and dump him Iris became find him Juby in a Amy. You understand me? I say, yeah. So with that, I want to thank you for tuning in. Everybody have a blessed day. Until next time. All right. One. Take care of yourself. Take care of loved ones. All right then. I agree, Kevin. It is important to humanize these historical figures so that we truly learn from them. I totally agree. And so here we are, humanizing humans. All right. Everybody, blessings. Have a good night.